Welcome to my underground lair here in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. This is my second time downtown since 2018, maybe 2019. I never come downtown. I used to work here a lot. Now I don't. That's my story today. I'm Taylor Jackson. I've photographed over 1,000 weddings all around the world, and for a long time was doing 60 or 70 weddings per year. And now we're in a parking garage. I've had weddings featured in places like People magazine and also on Instagram, where you just post it yourself. And today we're photographing an engagement session with the Nikon ZF, and not this lens, maybe a little bit of this lens, but primarily this, which is the Nikon 85mm f1.2. And I'm going to talk all about it during this video, not only in regards to the shoot that we're on, but also for weddings. And also a very important thing, do I prefer the 85 or the 51.2? And if I can only have one, which one would I have? And spoiler right now, the 85 is lovely, but the 50 is just generally more useful overall, I would say. At least for wedding and this style of coverage. And if you are committing to having a very large and heavy object in your bag, I do think that the 50 is more useful for what I do. If I was a portrait photographer and we had a big studio and I was in there all the time, the 85 might be my go-to, maybe an 85 and 35 combo, but sorry to spoil this video. The 85 is incredible though. So let's go take some pictures.
Awesome. And you can look at each other and just kind of going for a nice little walk here. So casual, so candid.
So the 85mm lens, I would say it was my primary focal length for a very long time, all through the DSLR years. Really into, I would say, maybe when the Tamron 35 to 150 came out. At that point, I stopped using my 85 a lot. I will still use it for pretty much every reception, but for the ceremony and for the other general times within a wedding day that I would usually use an 85, that has kind of been replaced with the Tamron 35 to 150. And if you're here for Nikon, I guess you are, that lens comes from Nikon, which is amazing. It also comes from Sony if you're a Sony shooter. But why would you be watching this video? Because Sony doesn't have an 85 1.2. That's why you're watching this video being like, man, I wish Sony would make that. Also, if you're interested, Focal has done something incredible. So we've been testing this for a little while now, and we actually generated 800 leads for 20 different photographers all around the world in our test period with this, which means 40 leads per photographer. Some photographers did even better, like my wife Lindsay, who got, she opened this for 22 days, and I think she got 40 leads within that window, which was crazy. So if you are a wedding photographer and maybe your bookings are down this season, or you just want to be booking more work, go check out the link in the description, because it's an incredible platform that Focal has built, and it's working for every single person on it. And I think the craziest thing with it is not only are they going to generate you new inquiries and new bookings, but they will actually run that entire process for you. So they're not a full studio manager, but they will manage those new inquiries. They will email with those people and they will sell you. So if you're bad at sales, if you just feel uncomfortable selling yourself or asking for as much money as you deserve, now all of a sudden you have a salesperson to do that for you. And if that sounds too good to be true, go check out that link and see some of the success stories, because yeah, it's just an incredible system that we built, and very excited for you to hopefully give it a shot. The characteristics of this 85 1.2, it makes a very, very three-dimensionally rich image, and it really makes your subjects pop from the background. I try not to overuse this, so I will shoot it at 1.2 a lot, but your depth of field is based on your proximity to your subject. So if you're really, really close to your subject and you're at minimum focus distance, that background is just going to be completely gone. But if you are far enough away to get two people comfortably holding hands and also include some of the surroundings around them, you are going to get that nice separation, but you are not just going to completely obliterate the background. And I feel like that's kind of what I aim to do with this lens. I will also say that the size of the bit, it's heavy, and it's on the verge of, it's almost uncomfortable to hold. So ergonomically, it's not a full 10 out of 10. And on the ZF, it's absolute not 10 out of 10, but I don't expect you to be using the ZF with this. Something like a Z6 style body, or maybe better yet, even the Z8 or Z9. This lens balances a heck of a lot better on a camera like that than it does the ZF. So if you have the ZF, I might say avoid this lens until you get a more ergonomic camera that will sustain it. So while I can do an engagement style shoot with it, or I guess we did a lot of a wedding day with it, it really does start to become difficult to use at some point. So something to be aware of. Go into a store, and if you can hold this before you actually buy it, I would recommend that, to see if the weight and the size is for you. The colors, the contrast, everything about this lens is lovely and incredible. It is probably the most perfect 85mm lens ever made, and that's why it's so big, because they spared no technical thing. And because of that, it's also quite expensive as well. Something to speak to, at least in wedding photography, is that the 85mm focal length allows you to be a little bit further away from people. So if you are introverted and you're in your car in a parking garage recording this, because do this out on the street is too much for you. If you are of that mindset, the 85mm focal length is probably going to be perfect for you. Manny Ortiz and I call it the introvert lens. And for couple sessions and weddings specifically, it is very, very nice to have because it does get you a little bit closer to the scene without actually having to be fully immersed in that scene. And it will help you create better work overall.
Now, let's talk about the 51.2. 51.2 is the older of the two lenses, and I consider it to be maybe Nikon's best lens ever. For sure their best 50mm lens. Nikon has a history that if you look at the f-mount versions of their 50s, there was never really one that I love. I do love the 58 f1.4, but there is a bit of a learning curve. It is by no means a perfect lens, and that's one of the reasons that I like it. This 50mm f1.2 for Z series is incredible. There is kind of one problem though. It's the same problem with the 85.1.2, is that the 85mm 1.8s and the 50mm f1.8s are also really, really great. If you're looking for reasons to jump to the 1.2, you definitely get shallower depth of field, just a more three-dimensional image overall, and everything just kind of feels buttery smooth. The out of focus backgrounds, the bokeh just feels really, really, really nice on the 1.2. Feels very good on the 1.8. But there is definitely a level of elevation when it comes to the images that come off this lens and how they feel. I shoot this lens and the 85 at f1.2 pretty much all of the time, unless given a reason not to. If I'm photographing many different people or multiple layers of people, I will stop down a bit, or focus distance as well, that if I'm 3 feet away from somebody, maybe that's minimum focusing distance, but I'm obviously going to stop down if needed. I would say most of the day, the distance that I typically take photos at and the distance that you're seeing the photos taken at here, if there are 2 people in the scene and it's shot at f1.2, I'm always very happy with how the focus ends up. I do try to keep my couples, at least their eye line, on the same plane of focus. So that means that one of them isn't 3 steps behind the other as they're walking, that they're usually on the same plane, and that helps me keep them both in focus. When it comes to low light, there's actually one catch that I actually prefer having an 85mm lens. So if you just go 50, you can probably get by reception, but I would recommend having an 85 1.8s or even one of the older DSLR versions, because it's very nice to have that extra reach so you don't have to be parked in front of people. But the good news of both these lenses, they're both great. So you really can't go wrong. It's all about exactly what's for you and what fits your use case the best.
That is all from this shoot with the 85mm f1.2 for Nikon. And yeah, incredible lens. In conclusion, the same statement that stays true to what I said earlier. 85 versus the 50 if you're on the fence. I would personally be going 50 if you are a wedding and portrait photographer and you're doing on-location shoots like this. I find it a lot more versatile, even though you get maybe a little more depth of field. You can just walk a few steps closer if you want to really make that background kind of feel the same. I know it's not going to be exactly the same, but I really do stand by the fact that the 50 is more versatile overall. The 50 is also still heavy, but ergonomically, the barrel is just a little bit easier to hold, I find. And you can get away with doing some family formals with the 50, as well as your couple shoot, as well as reception coverage and everything else it needs. So yeah. Thumbs up to these 1.2 lenses Nikon is building. Those are my thoughts, and if you're interested in getting Focal to book you work and get you more inquiries incoming and then also manage those as your studio manager, head on over to the link down below and they will sell your services for you. They'll book you weddings. You don't have to do anything. You have to come in at some point and actually take the pictures, but they'll do the sales process for you. They'll just get you leads and book you work. Life is easy, right? Sounds too good to be true, but it really is a true system that is working for many people all around the world. That's all for today. See you next time. Bye.